Good day, everyone. This is Chris Gallagher. Welcome to the Preacher's Pen Bible Study. This is our weekly Bible study that we go through. We pick out one chapter of the Bible per week, and we go through that. And this week, from March 27th, which is Monday, until March 31st on Friday, we're going to be talking about James chapter 1. Now, a lot of people have asked some questions. Why one chapter a week? Well, we hope that this helps you to focus on one specific chapter during the entire week, that as we go through, you get to gain your knowledge of that chapter. We hope, number two, that going through this, it will spur you on to greater study within the book that we're talking about. And number three, it gives you something to share. It gives you something outside of your normal Bible classes on Sundays or Wednesday nights or whenever your congregation has a Bible study, that you can go through and you can follow along. Now, we've jumped around quite a bit. We've been in Mark chapter 5, we've been in 1 Corinthians, we've been in Luke, we've been in Psalms, we've been in a lot of different places talking about these. So now we're going to get into James chapter 1. Now, what we do on Mondays is we read through the text. We come back on Tuesday to Friday, and Friday's really our summary day of the entire chapter, but we like to pick out various points throughout the chapter to key in on and to give you some information. But today we're going to read through the text. I'm going to give you a little bit of background information that's going to help you, hopefully, in your studies if you continue to study through the book of James. But let's go ahead and jump into this. I'm going to be reading from the English Standard Version, and we're going to read all the way down through this chapter, which is 27 verses, and then we'll come back and provide that background information to you. So let's read together. Once again, I'll be reading from the English Standard Version in James chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes in the dispersion, greetings. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation, and the rich in his humiliation, because like a flower of the grass he will pass away. For the sun rises with its scorching heat and withers the grass. Its flower falls, and its beauty perishes. So also will the rich man fade away in the midst of his pursuits. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial. For when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, with which God has promised to those who love him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. Do not be deceived, my beloved brothers. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Now knowing this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Therefore, put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. If anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror. For he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he is like. But the one who looks into the perfect law of liberty and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, he will be blessed in his doing. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to visit the widows and orphans in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. Now, there's a lot that's contained right there in the book of James, but let's give you a little bit of background information that I think is going to help. Now, as we think about James, There's more than one James in the New Testament. We have James the son of Zebedee in Mark chapter 1 and verse 9. We have James the son of Alphaeus in Mark chapter 15, verse 40. We have James the father of Judas, not Judas Iscariot, another Judas, which is in Luke chapter 6 and verse 16. I also believe in John chapter 14 and verse 22. We have James the Lord's brother, which is found in Galatians chapter 1 and verse 19. Now, this James that many people consider that's being spoken about here is James, the brother of Jesus. Now, one of the reasons for that is James, the son of Zebedee, died in about 44 A.D. You can read about his death in Acts chapter 12 and verse 2. But James, the brother of Jesus, is mentioned in Matthew chapter 13 and verse 55 and Galatians chapter 1 and verse 19. Now, if you remember, James and the other brothers of Jesus seemingly tried to discourage Jesus in Mark 6 and also in John chapter 7. However, what we find out is in their lives they seemingly grew, because James is known with the disciples in the upper room in Acts chapter 1 and verse 14. Peter sent the good news to James in Acts chapter 12 and verse 17. Excuse me, getting adjusted there a little bit. And James speaks to the brethren at a gathering that's in Jerusalem in Acts chapter 15. We also find out that James and Paul spoke to the elders in Acts chapter 21. And this James, if this is the brother of Jesus writing this, is mentioned as a pillar of the church. Now, those are all significant for a lot of reasons, because James, if you notice in chapter 1, verse 1, just a little bit of background, he says, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes of the dispersion, or to the 12 tribes that are scattered. Some translations will use the word scattered abroad. Now, this scattering of the 12 tribes, talking about the roots in Judaism, but referring to Christians, comes from Acts chapter 8. In Acts chapter 8, beginning in verse 1, we find the end of chapter 7 being Stephen's message. Acts chapter 8 begins where the Christians were persecuted. You have the death of Stephen, and they become scattered throughout the entire world. It's very interesting to follow the story of the book of Acts. As you see, it started in Jerusalem and Judea, as we mentioned last week in our study of Acts chapter 2. Then it went to Samaria, then it went to the uttermost parts of the world. And James is now writing to these Christians that are scattered, that are everywhere in the world, and he's saying to them that they need to continue in the faith. You know, tomorrow we're going to pick up in verse 2 when it says, count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. He knows from a practical side that this is what they are going to get into. In fact, many people have called the book of James the book of Monday through Saturday Christianity because of its practicality, because of the joy and the wisdom and the faith and the vision and the following of the perfect law of liberty and doing the actions, not just, simply believing them. And James gets into all of that just in chapter 1. Before he gets into faith in chapter 2, he gets into their desires in chapter 3 and in chapter 4. There's so much information that is contained in this entire book, but the book is about faith. This really small letter is about the faith that they have in God, and James is definitely, if this is the Lord's brother, which I believe that it is, he grew in his faith, having first rejected Jesus because, after all, it's his brother. You know, it's hard to believe that Jesus was going to be the Messiah, to take away the sins of the world and to do all these miracles and these wonders that had to be difficult. But instead, we know that he grows in his faith. And as Paul calls him in Galatians, chapter 1, Paul calls him a pillar of the church. So we see James's growth in this entire letter. And the question that we're going to ask is, how are we growing? How is our life today different than our life yesterday or a week ago or a month ago or a year ago? How are we able to grow in our faith? So as we go through this weekly series, I hope that you'll stick with us. I hope that you'll follow us along and get into this study of James chapter 1. Now, places that you can find us are on thepreacherspen.org. That is our website. You can search for James. I would also encourage you to sign up for our newsletter list. That's on the toolbar up top. And if you have a prayer request, just let us know. We'd be glad to add that to our prayers. Also, you can find us on YouTube, youtube.com, then the /, use that @ symbol, then Preacher's Pen, and you'll be able to find us, or you can search Preacher's Pen and put Chris Gallagher in there and you'll find us as well. And the last place that you're going to be able to watch our videos is going to be on Rumble, rumble.com/Preacher's Pen. We hope that you tune in this week as we dive into the first chapter of the book of James. And as always, we hope you have a great day, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Be blessed.